introduction, I'm going to ask everyone to please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I forgot that part.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Born and unborn.
All right, I'd like to thank the American Legion for hosting us tonight. We had a great turnout here tonight. Thank you. In a minute, I will ask the candidates to introduce themselves. Everyone will have 2 minutes for each introduction, closing statements, and 3 minutes for each to answer each question. We ask that you hold your applause until all candidates have completed their answers. This year, in addition to creating some of our own questions, we solicited suggestions from our readers to see what issues are on their minds. I will pose a question to the group, and each candidate will have 2 minutes for their response. Maya will hold up a yellow piece of paper when 30 seconds remain, and a red piece of paper when time is up. Now, without further ado, let's get this underway, and starting first with the candidates for Senate District 13, which consists of Lincoln County except for Dresden, Washington, and Windsor. Here we have challenger Dale Harmon and Senator Cameron Rennie. We next have the candidates for House District 48, which consists of Boothbay, Boothbay Harbor, Edgecombe, South Bristol, Southport, and Westport Island. We have James William Hunt III and Representative Holly Stover. All right. Thank you all. Let's start with
Intros.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. You have 2 minutes to talk about yourself. Go ahead, Dale.
My name is Dale Harmon. I'm a lifelong Mainer. Lived in this peninsula pretty much my entire life. I'm just a working guy who kind of doesn't like the way things are going, so I've been kind of getting involved. I've raised 2 children here in the community to adulthood with a previous marriage. I've remarried 2 years ago, and now I'm married to my wife, Kristen, who's a special ed teacher down here in Boothbay, and we're raising my stepdaughter, Zoe, now. For the last 25 years, I've been an employee at the Boothbay Register Water District. For the last 17 of those, I've been the foreman, distribution foreman, so I've overseen multi-million-dollar water projects and road construction. So I think I have a pretty good handle on budgeting and how to handle large construction projects. Also, for the last 16 years, I've been a selectman for the town of Boothbay, so I have basic knowledge on politics. I don't think a selectman, I think I can get there with a little bit of time. I think the state's kind of going in the wrong direction, and this is why I've decided to jump in. Economically, we're spending $7 billion more than what we were, $5 billion more than we were just a few years back. I don't think that's fiscally responsible. I think we need to do better. Economically, we need to be a little bit more fiscally responsible. Sorry, that yellow flag.
I know. You'll get used to it.
You say that.
Cameron?
Thank you, and thank you for hosting this. It's a good opportunity to be able to speak out to so many different constituents. So I am Cameron Rennie. I'm currently the state senator for District 13, which, as you said, is essentially most of Lincoln County, plus Washington and Windsor.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Yes. I grew up in Bristol, Maine. It's just a peninsula over. I currently live in my hometown with my husband and my 2 boys. Got little Georgie, who's just started 1st grade, and Milan just started pre-K. I have spent most of my adult life in public education as a school counselor. It's a great job. I really love it. I love working with the kids. I love working with the families. It's a job that's changed a lot though in the past few decades. So on top of working with every student to make sure they reach their potential academically, social, emotionally, and in terms of career development, another big part of my job is working with families and helping them access the resources that they need and get the skills they need in order to be successful. And so after years of doing this and having my own kids, I care a lot about the next generation having their best shot at happy and prosperous lives from here. And I realized I can make more of an impact at the policy level, at the state level, and that was why I ran for office. So I just finished up my first term, and it went really well. I've learned so much. I've made a lot of really great relationships. I have been effective. I'm so happy to say that my school counseling skills have transferred over to mostly my middle school ones, to be fair. But it involves navigating complex webs of relationships. You need to be able to communicate effectively. You need to be able to work with everyone. So I got a lot done, and I'm looking forward to get more done this next year.
Bill?
Thank you very much. Thank you all for attending this. It's very much appreciated. It's important that people be involved at this level because this is where things happen. Do even tonight. All right. My name again is Bill Hunt. Although on the ballot, I'm James William Hunt. My dad was James, so I inherited the bill. I've been in business for the past 35 years. My career in technology, chief technology officer, companies, build companies here in Maine, in other areas. We have over 15 jobs with the companies that I've built in the years. And that kind of experience working in business and working in government as a vendor and as a constituent has given me a background as I deal with the states, with the regulations of the state, taxation of the state, the years of exclusive demographic tremendous spending, as David alluded to, spending has gone up from $14 billion. We've seen we are the highest tax in the country. We have the highest property taxes in the country. We've just seen some massive increases in this area. But yet, with all that spending, our education has dropped to one of the worst in the country. And it's time for us to make a change. And that's what got me running. Dealing with all the regulations after the storms. I got involved with permit by rule and getting that changed as a peer. If your peers were damaged without having to go through a $6,000 permitting process. That's what I can do. And we do need to type, it's time for change investment. Thank you.
Molly?
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you all for being here. I just want to acknowledge that today is Rosh Hashanah. So I acknowledge for our friends who are with us tonight, for thinking of them and for wishing them a happy new year. I am a Boothbay native. This is my home. I grew up here, and I work in state government. For 25 years, I worked in state government. I worked in the health and children's mental health. I worked in the branch. I worked in developmental disabilities and child welfare, domestic violence and sexual assault. And I worked in substance use services. And I did all of those things. I have a tremendous passion for our neighbors in need and a tremendous passion for the people of Maine. I decided to run because once I wasn't working in state government, everything that I acquired, the skills, really on the opposite side of the horseshoe, the knowledge and the skills, I could bring back to Augusta to represent my community where other true passion lies. I believe in our community. I believe that we're strong. We are a resilient group of people. We have strong roots in our fishing. My one grandfather was a commercial fisherman, and the other one was a farmer on the Dover Road. So other than knowing a lot about weather, I also know an awful lot about character and have a strong constitution. It has been my pleasure to serve as a representative for the past 6 years. It has been my honor to be your representative. I am running again because I believe we still have work to do. I leave that there. I just got my flag, but again, have more to say about that, and we'll cover it later. Thank you.
Great, great. All right, we're going to start with the questions. We're going to start with Cameron first and go to your left. Afterwards, while talking with voters in the lead up to the election, what are some of the topics or issues that have been most frequently brought up? And if elected, how do you vote to address them in the legislature? Yeah.
So I have been knocking on a lot of doors recently, and the things that are always on the top of people's minds are really, they're the kitchen table issues. They're being able to make ends meet, being able to afford to pay our bills, and being able to find people to be working in our businesses. It is a lot of economic concerns that boil down into concerns for families being able to stay here in their home. So there's a few different ways we can go about tackling this really big, immense issue. Something I've been focusing on currently over the past week, I'd like to focus on is housing. That plays a big part in economic hardship, but also in our ability to attract more workers and more businesses, because people need to live here, to be able to work here. We need to be able to afford to stay in our homes, to be able to live here and work here. I'm assuming there will be more housing questions, so I won't go into that too deep right now. Another piece is healthcare is a huge burden on a lot of people, especially our contractors. Healthcare costs are something I put a lot of effort behind, and I intend to continue to put effort behind both insurance costs as well as prescription drug costs, which can be downright predatory, quite frankly. So another thing, just because I have 30 seconds left, other than housing and healthcare, we really need to be taking a good hard look at how climate change and increasing storms as well as frequency of storms fits into our economy. If you saw the devastation after the storms this past winter, we know that it really deeply affected our fishing industries as well as other waterfront industries.
Bill.
Certainly the economic issues, as Kevin referenced, are top of mind for most people. The inflation, the cost of groceries, the cost of property taxes, and other taxes are certainly high on people's minds right now. Also, I'm the harbor master at Boothbay Harbor, and one of the things I hear a lot from the commercial fishermen is the regulations that they have to deal with, the lobstermen that we can deal with having a tracker on their boats, trying to change different things that are being done, but mostly by the federal government, but the state needs to have a big say in that. I believe the way to help with these issues is not try to centralize one-size-fits-all government solutions. I think that to attract more businesses, to attract people to stay here, we need to focus on reducing the burden that we place on our employers and on the people who live here in this state. As I mentioned earlier, we have the fourth highest taxes in this country. We're also the oldest state in the country. We're in the oldest county in that state. And Boothbay Harbor is the oldest town in the oldest county in the oldest state. Okay. We need to be able to work to keep our young people here, make it possible for them to live here. If you go to build a house today, $25,000 in regulatory costs just to get it started. Okay. These are things that we need to change. We need to not have so many rudder commands coming out of Augusta and Washington, and let the people of Maine do what they do best, okay, which I trust these people and everybody here to do what they do best to make us successful. And we need to do that without having Augusta try to drive the boat all the time.
Thank you. Roland.
Thank you, Kevin. The top of mind for people I talk to is housing. We have a lack of housing access in this community. We're in the process of trying to permit and build 160 units of affordable housing, which will include low-income housing, median income, and home ownership, which will address some of our needs. But tonight, we have people who have no place to live. As the director of the Community Resource Council, I can tell you, the waiting list right now, 7 to 8 people, once it gets cold, have no place to come inside. So that's not only a concern for our community, but it's a concern for at the state level as well. I serve on the Joint Select Committee on Housing. We appropriated $76 million this year, not just for affordable housing to be built, but also for rental housing subsidies, for mobile home stabilization, and also for emergency shelters. And shelters are the last thing you want to offer to people, that is better than freezing outside. Housing is a real concern. Access to health care and continue to have sustainable health care. We've seen our own healthcare system in Lincoln County go through tremendous changes. And we have to figure out how we're going to sustain that hospital along with other hospitals on the coast of Maine. Inflationary costs of everything. And we have people who are struggling to meet ends meet every week, whether it is, as my friends have said up here, whether it is the cost of groceries, the cost of utilities. We are going to grapple with how we bring resources to people so that it is more affordable for people to live. And one of the ways in which I think we need to do that is to have higher levels of oversight, not just of CMP. Our infrastructure is frail. We know gear better than anyone, but also the PUC, which regulates, does not have to ask the legislature before they regulate anything around CMP. So I think we really have to get a handle on what oversight really looks like. We've been fortunate to have good response from CMP on this peninsula. I've spent many long nights on the phone with them. We need to do better.
Thanks. Dale?
As Cameron pointed out, I've knocked on a lot of doors, quite literally, I think, more than 1,000. Probably the first and foremost thing that I hear about is groceries. The cost of going to the grocery store week after week has gotten kind of astronomical. It's really going to get to a point where people are going to struggle between heating their homes or putting food on their plates, and somehow we're going to have to figure out how to correct that. Certainly, affordable housing is the next. Anybody who has young children, and I say young, children that are entering adulthood that want to try to rent or buy a place, it's almost impossible anywhere in the state. That has got to be addressed at some level. We don't know how to go about it at a state level. As Bill pointed out, you can kind of try to help out with permitting costs and whatnot, but the reality of it is there's going to be a supply chain issue from COVID that has to be corrected and get those prices back down to where they were prior to. How to do that, I'm not sure. I have all the we don't need to make it so young people can survive in the state. I think getting kids back into push on for college. Technical schools in this state, building electricians, plumbers, they're all needed. I don't think there's a store or an industry around here that doesn't have help wanted. Where did our workforce go? Our kids here. These are all things that need to be addressed. These are what I'm hearing. I knock on people's doors. To address them, it's multi-level. Certainly at a state level, a lot of it's going to be down at a local level as well. I think the state needs to work with the local level in order to make sure these things happen so we can keep our young people.
Very good. Let's give them a round of applause. Start with the next question. Between inflation and increased property taxes, Mayor's dollars are being stretched thinner and thinner. What can the legislature do to help alleviate stress?
Thank you. One of the things we can do is reinstate the property tax stabilization program that was repealed after the first year, that allowed people that over 65 and older to lock in their property tax rates and not face massive increases. It's amazing to me that was repealed. Also repealed this year was the municipal tax levy limit that required that citizens had to vote when property taxes were raised. And I know there was a lot of pressure from the southern part of the state to change that. And unfortunately, that was repealed as well. So we see some of the results of what's going on with the spending changes and huge tax increases in Edgecombe. Over in Southport, we had 8.25%, in Edgecombe, I believe it was 30%. and change. We need to stop letting that happen. These taxes need to be kept under control, and we particularly need to protect our seniors so they're not chased out of their homes just to pay a property tax bill. We also need to work to get people to encourage people to work. We've got a very low labor participation rate in this state right now, and part of that problem is the tax structure, and that's the cost. These are driving the spending, and the taxes are driving the inflation, and they're driving the inability to have people here to stay. And I think that's something that we really need to work on as we go forward here. Inflation, of course, is being driven a lot on the national level. Huge spending that's going on, out of control spending in Washington, but it's pretty much out of control in Augusta too. One of the things people don't recognize about inflation is something that cost $10 a couple of years ago. You paid your 55 cents taxes on that. Now you're paying $20, it's $1.10 in taxes. It's a lot more revenue to the state that they're just spending and not giving back to us.
Thanks. Ollie?
Thank you, Kevin. Inflationary costs are out of control. And when we talk about property taxes, for those who don't know, are set by municipalities. And if you look at your tax bill, our property taxes in Boothbay went up 11%. At the bottom of my tax bill, it gives me a breakout that is due primarily to the county budget and the school budget. So while we talk about property taxes, we also have to analyze where that increase actually comes from. And additionally, as my opponent indicated, we did repeal and replace. We did not simply repeal the property tax fairness credit, property tax stabilization bill. We replaced that with two. Actually, there's a property tax deferral bill, which is a different program, and also the property tax fairness credit. We increased in the past 6 years, we've increased the homestead exemption. For those of you who receive it, you know that that's the portion that comes off your bill and your valuation if this is your primary residence. We raised it once and we'll likely raise it again in the 132nd legislature. Because the homestead exemption is one way that we can keep seniors aging in place in their homes. And that's incredibly important. To control inflation is to look at other opportunities. The earned income tax credit keeps more money in individual families' pockets. When we provide childcare subsidies so people can go to work, so you have to look at financing in a much broader way than single bills and single issues.
I gave you yellow. You have 15 more seconds.
Thank you very much. With my 15 seconds, I just want to say the property tax levy limits was a bill that municipalities in Maine didn't lose and had a huge administrative work. It was not simply to repeal 2102. 2202 was an ineffective piece of legislation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ollie. Dale?
It's a multifaceted issue that we're all going to deal with. Like Holly pointed out, at the local level as much as the state level, that is incumbent inflation, primarily at the federal level, that is burdening. But the state has certainly the ability to help that out. We, let's go to energy alone. Right now, the state is, I should say, all the ratepayers of anybody who pays an electric bill is subsidizing corporations for solar and wind. I don't understand why we want to do that. I don't know why the people that are struggling to put food on their table are helping out multi-billion-dollar corporations instead of allowing free trade or free industry to come in here and drive some of these energy prices down to put more money in people's pockets, make things a little bit easier for the average person. Are any of these things easy to do? Of course not, but they need to happen. Right now, everybody is feeling that crunch exponentially. That's the one thing I've heard over and over and over again. It's why I'm here. I'm passionate about trying to help people, and I listen to everybody say it's so much harder to get by. It's so much harder to get your bills, get your food, put in your burgers or whatever. Something has to be corrected. And The only way to do anything about it is to get into Augusta and figure out where you can make those big changes. What I have.
Thank you, Jim.
We're talking about stretch pocketbooks, right? So I agree. You have to get into Augusta and you have to find those places where you can make a real effect, where you can make some real change. The fact of the matter is, nobody in Augusta has control over what Hannaford is charging for groceries. They don't. I wish we did. That'd be great. I wish we could tackle some of these larger national issues. But we can have effect on some issues. Some of those issues being, again, as Representative Stover brought up, childcare. I talk to families where there are two people that want to be in the workforce, but childcare is either too expensive or they can't find it at home. So one person is staying home instead of filling that need for that job out in the workforce, instead of being able to bring in that extra money. Making sure we encourage things like childcare and take care of our people who are taking care of our children is very important for our corporate. Other things I've already touched on a bit. Housing is a huge burden. It is a supply and demand issue. We should have been building 10 years ago. And so now we need housing at all levels. Lower income, middle income, higher income for a few people that are still in middle income. And we have been tackling that issue. We have things put in place. We have invested money in the creation of housing in rural areas, not just our larger cities. I'm very proud of the work that we've done on that. It's not going to happen overnight, and there's no magic silver bullet. But the more we pay attention to it and think creatively, and that's where investment should happen, we are going to get past this at some point. Thank you.
First, education is a topic on a lot of people's mind. What changes, if any, would you want to see the legislature take in regards to the public education system?
One of the things that we have done in the past 6 years is raised general purpose aid to our public schools to 55%. Prior to that, even though that existed in statute, we were not paying the 55%. That meant that burden fell back on local municipalities. We're facing some real challenges here in our district. I think most people know that, in how to sustain our schools. How do we financially sustain our schools, but also at the same time make sure that they're quality schools and that our students are getting the best education possible? How do we repair our broken schools, our outdated schools, and keep them current? And how do we make sure that we continue to attract families so that people want to enroll their children here and they want to stay here? Those are all complicated problems with very different answers. I think we have to sustain the 55% general purpose aid to our schools. If we were to lower that, the burden goes immediately to our taxpayers. As I mentioned earlier, 30% increase, 11% increase, those all are related to our school costs. I know that we had a recent vote where we had voters vote yes on bonding $30 million to repair the Boothbay schools. That's currently in the court because the people on the no side of that vote are suing. When that gets resolved, one way or the other, we'll know which direction we're going to move in our communities. We're struggling. We need no more relief. It is going to cost money. If we want to prioritize the future of our communities and the future of our children, we have to provide public education. And I feel pretty strongly. I'm a daughter of a school teacher who taught for 25 years in Boothbay Regional Elementary School. And I know the sacrifices she made personally and professionally. And thank you.
That's all I do.
Well, I would love to see the state keep the 55% and make sure they meet it every year. I completely understand schools are structured. It's a place for our kids, and it definitely needs to be safe. It should be as up to date as possible. I really don't want to make this personal or local level $30 million that happened here. Whether I'm for it or against it, it's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is, education for our students is what I think is the biggest priority. Making sure that administrations are held accountable to make sure that we have good educations. I think giving parents back the rights in those schools and making sure parental has insight and say on what's being taught in those schools, I think is critically important. We moved away from that. I think that's a mistake myself. I'm not trying to imply for 1 second at all that inclusivity or anything to that effect is wrong. I think the push and the priority needs to be educating our students the way they've always been educated throughout all the years. Civility, decency, respect, courtesy, all those things must be maintained as they always have been. You know, raising our kids to be courteous, respectful to one another is highly important. And also, the fact of the matter is, every one of these schools can have efficiency. Every school can do better at being efficient. I think their teachers need to be paid better. I think we need to support the ones that do their job and do their job really, really well. I also think there's a way that we maybe critique those ones that are not doing as well. That's what I have.
Cameron, thank you.
Yeah, schools are near and dear to my heart, especially as a public educator for so long. I'm glad to hear that we agree so far that we should be funding on the state level the schools at 55%. I would really love for us, and I think there's a study going on right now. I'm sorry, I didn't check that. But I believe they're looking at the EPS formula, essentially, right? Services formula to make sure that funding is going where funding needs to go, right? Teachers are wonderful and of course need to be paid more. It is difficult because Maine is also its own rural state. And the great thing about that is there is so much opportunity for people to be involved with their schools. As somebody who's worked in them for years, I can tell you, I would love for more parents to be involved in public schools. It makes such a better experience for the families, for the kids. I worked with professionals. I actually led the School Counselor Association for a while. I have heard stories and spoken to people from schools all over the state, and nobody goes into teaching because of their kids. They're not going for the money. We all know that. They're educated. They care. They're looking at data-driven, evidence-based education strategies. And I have still yet to meet an educator who, if a parent came to them and said, actually, I don't want my kid to read this book, and these are the reasons why. Oftentimes, they're very receptive to that. Because parents also already have control over their children and how they're educated. Please, I always encourage people to get involved.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Bill?
Okay, real quick, I would like the property tax deferral program that references a death tax on Forest Street because that money has been paid when that house is sold to the person best. On education, it's not all about money. I do agree about the 55% funding, but there's other things we can do in the legislature to help. Our education system in the state is unfortunately failing. We have strong education in the state 30 years ago, we were top ranked, now we're near the bottom. What are some of the things we can do about that? As a legislature, one, we can require the citizenship test when you graduate from high school. So that the students understand how it works. We should be teaching civics. And when I was in school, we had things called home economics, balance of checkbook, we had shop. Like these different things. Teachers, all the three branches. I'd also like to see us put in a program that I'll outline really quickly. It was talked about profile and LCN to keep our kids here. Like to see if they get a job and they work 10 hours during the school year, or 30 hours, maybe some students during the summer. Then maybe the state will put a fund together and match what they earn. And then they can use that when they graduate from high school to go to any school in the state they want, trade school, March. This would be a replacement community college program. And during college, same thing. They match those buddies to pay their tuitions if it's 2 years, 4 years. But if they stay for 2 years after that, the remaining balance goes to them, as long as they're working here in the state of Maine. We need to keep our young people in this state, we need to get them in trades. It's so hard to hire right now, in this state for the different, as I hear from Stephanie Clark, for example, trying to hire people, it's almost impossible.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, you're up next. Emergency services in the state have been hit with changes over the past few years, with potentially more on the horizon. Equipment, personal costs have all increased dramatically over the past few years, and local respondents say proposed OSHA changes are threatening to have a large impact primarily on fire services. What is your view on the state of emergency services in Maine? And what role do you envision the legislature taking to address some of these matters?
Well, I only hope that the legislature will take some of these matters to try to fight the federal government and the ocean. The reality of it is, for a fire department like Portland or South Portland or Gorham or Bangor, they can only afford these changes that OSHA's trying to swing their federal hammer down on. But for smaller volunteer services throughout the state, and we have a lot more volunteer small services than we do full-time, year-round services. Let's face that, folks. It's going to bankrupt or kill some of these smaller services. They may be able to consolidate, they may be able to join forces with one another, but the fact of the matter is, we've talked about this in length on the selectmen, and it's going to be devastating to any community that isn't a little bit on the affluent side. I can say it that way. It's just true. So from the legislature level, I'd like to think that we fight the federal government. I'd like to see us fight OSHA and put things back into some common sense. We have good fire departments, we have really good people and really good volunteers on them. They've done well to where we are now. There's no reason why somebody has to overreach government and say X, Y, and Z. That's a community that's wrong on every level. As far as other ambulance service and whatever else, I know it's going to have a smaller impact on them. Primarily, it's going to be fire departments, but finding volunteers, finding ambulance attendants, finding people that are willing to volunteer in the fire department is almost impossible as it is. And if you have a good volunteer service, the last thing you want to do is lose them because OSHA steps up and throws their mitts into the matter and drives everybody away or makes it so nobody can afford to do it.
Thank you. Cameron?
Thanks. Yeah, this is a big, potentially scary situation we could be put in if these OSHA standards do end up going through. I was doing some research into this back towards in the spring, June-ish time, I'm not sure. They would be incredibly burdensome. The fact of the matter is, Maine has 80+% of our fire departments are volunteer-based. We do not have the same resources or equipment or ability to put that together as larger cities do, for sure. And I do not want us to be put in a position where if my mom calls 911, or if any of your parents or children or friends or neighbors call 911, that nobody shows up. That's appalling. So in the regulations, some of them, of course, we want to keep our firefighters safe. It's something that we do need to do better. There has been exposure to very dangerous chemicals in the past, but there's also places in these new regulations that we can and should and will be pushing back on, have started pushing back on, quite frankly. Maine did a great job putting in a lot of comments during that first public period. And this rulemaking won't even be going through until November, so we still have time to be pushing back against this. One of the things that pops to my head as being particularly ridiculous for us is I want to say it's like a 10-year, if your equipment is over 10 years old, you have to get rid of it. We can't even buy our fire trucks till they're 10 or 15 years old with the resources that we have. It's going to be a struggle, and we're going to have problem solving around us for our rural areas, because we've been subsidized by a lot of free labor for those volunteers, and it's wonderful. Everybody's hustling. We're working 2 jobs. We can't also volunteer, so we need to figure something out. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. Bill.
Thank you. With all of that, we do have to stop that. What we're looking at here is, again, one size fits all, centralized control and centralized regulation. In this case, coming from Washington. But whether it's coming from Washington or coming from Augusta, it's usually the wrong answer. Okay? The experts in Washington can't find Maine on a map. And it's just absolutely crazy that we have this kind of thing going on. And that is the problem we have in both capitals right now, is that this belief that centralized government can make our lives better by dictating how we live. And that's just wrong. We know how to do this. We know what we need to fight fires on South Port Island or West Port Island or Boothbay Harbor. We don't need somebody in Washington to try to tell us what that is. And we don't need somebody in Augusta to tell us everything they'll think. Look, it's not just firefighting. Because they're doing to the lobstermen, to the offshore fishermen. And overregulation has driven so many people out of those industries. And overregulation has made this state unfriendly to business. It's made it so that it's very hard for us to hire. It's very hard to create a business here. I have built businesses in this state. I have moved business out of this state because of the regulations that I faced. Okay? We need to change that. This centralized control of economy simply does not work. And it's time. We've been experimenting in this state for 6 straight years. Democratic control. It's time for a change.
Thanks, Bill. Holly?
Thank you, Kevin. The OSHA standards that are proposed would strip our volunteer-based fire departments in our communities of any ability to move forward. So it's serious. We did provide a letter to OSHA, the leadership of both the House and the Senate, wrote to OSHA, and I'm encouraged by the fact that they delayed the public comment period in November because I believe they're taking this seriously. But like many regulations, when you're a small, rural, coastal community, it disproportionately impacts you. And that's what this regulation, proposed regulation, and it would bankrupt. We don't have the money. We're already struggling to have the volunteer base to continue. We have the most amazing fire departments in this district. We have incredibly dedicated volunteers and all of the people that go behind them and support them. Whenever there's a fire in one town, everybody steps up and responds. We can't lose that level of response. We can't. So whether that gets loosened by Washington, they take a serious look at the needs of rural coastal communities like ours, or rural communities like most of Maine. The one size fits all, I would agree. It doesn't apply to us. And we have to, if it does go forward in any sort of fashion, we will have to find a way at the state level and municipal level to continue to support our first responders. Think about all of the days and nights we have an emergency on this peninsula and the way to pivot and move and go. And we can't lose that response. And so we will have to, I mean, we don't know, it's pure speculation, but in the event we face these challenges, I don't have the answer tonight sitting here to say this is how we would do it. It will require an immediate response because we can't accept anything less as our.
Thank you. Good answer to the question. All right, a little bit of change of pace here. Next question is for Holly and Cameron. Let's start with Cameron. What achievement from your most recent term are you most proud of and why?
I'm really proud of a lot of things. I guess if I had to just pick one, it would be one that's the most related to my work as a school counselor previously. What would happen for years, and it was so frustrating, is I would have either a student or a student's family member who would end up in an emergency department or a crisis center due to a mental health event. And then that doctor in that emergency department or crisis center would give them a referral to behavioral health supports and services that they need. And then insurance would deny it, so they could not receive it because they did not go through their primary care physician. And it sounds like it's not that big of a deal, like just make an appointment with your primary care physician. But it's really, it was a roadblock to so many of these families that just couldn't get there, or would put it off until another mental health event came, or the struggle is real. So that was something that was very frustrating to me for years. In my first year in office, I put in a bill, 7 something, I'm not great with remembering the exact numbers. But what it did is it requires insurance companies now, if somebody goes into an emergency department for a mental health event or physical therapy services, for some reason the doctors also really liked that being tagged into. But if you get a referral for mental health services or physical therapy services from a emergency department, the insurance now has to cover those services. Your primary care physician is still alerted, so you still have holistic care, but you are not requiring people to take time out of their workday and money out of their pockets to go to a primary care physician with something they already know they need and a doctor has already signed off on. Thank you.
Thank you. Holly.
Thank you, Kevin. This past session, I sponsored a bill to provide security screening at the Cross Office Building. If you've ever visited the State House, you know in the State House, you have to walk through security screening. You go to the adjacent building, we have several committee rooms, and above that, several hundred state employees work. There is no security in that building. In my tenure in state government, I worked as the state's director for domestic and sexual violence. And in that role, I did safety plannings for state employees who may have someone in their life that was threatening them and presenting a danger. I went to that building many times with Capitol Police to do security planning for state employees who were threatened in the workplace. Every day in this country, you can turn on the news somewhere. You will find a story about a workplace where somebody, a disgruntled employee, an estranged spouse, somebody with another axe to grind, somebody with a major mental illness, shows up in a workplace unannounced and commits an act of violence. In our committee rooms in the Cross Office Building, in my committee room, I chair the State and Local Government Committee. In other committee rooms, there have been threats against us. Those threats are real. So I was a proud sponsor of a bill to provide a security screening at the Cross Office Building, which hopefully by the time you visit it again, you will be screening. Because we have no ability to screen who comes in and who goes out, who gets in the stairwell, and who is threatening. It's great to have Capitol Police. Most of our committee rooms, if you get in them, have one way in and one way out. And if there's an active shooter in the building, you don't have a lot of chance. So I'm very proud of that legislation. I'm proud that for the state employees, who I was one of, and I worked for the fourth quarter many years, they will have that security.
Thank you, Kate. Any more questions, challengers? If elected, I'm going to start with Bill. If elected, what would be your number one priority during your first term?
My top priorities is going to be education. I have a daughter, a son-in-law, a sister, and a grandmother, and a great-aunt, all of whom are educators. And as I mentioned earlier, I have that program I'd like to see us do in education. I think we need to change our education system in the state to make it better for our kids, to get them and with them so that they are ready to become citizens of this country and ready to be active part of our community, that they know how to balance a checkbook, that they know how to, yes, we still have to do that, and that they know all about how our system of government works, what our rights are, what the Constitution says, et cetera. But also, as I mentioned several times, the state is heavily overregulated, heavily overtaxed. These are things that work very hard to change. To get government off the backs of people, we need to get government out of our wallets. We need to get it so that we trust and show that we trust the people of the state of Maine to do what's in their own best interests and to build their own lives and the lives of their children, and build their own futures without us telling them how to do it.
Yep. Thank you, Bill.
First and foremost would be energy. I'm trying to help people out in their wallets more than anything else, and I think energy trickle down, so if you can lower, say, Hanford's energy costs, that will reflect the taxpayer as a whole. So, and it's not just electricity, it's fuel, it's everything, because if you can lower people's energy costs, that becomes better for everybody within, in the state of Maine. That being said, I also would love a little bit touch on what Bill said is I'd like to get education back into the state for technical colleges, plumbers, electricians, masons, building constructions. There's nobody down here. I heard a statistic yesterday that 6,000 licensed plumbers in the state a few years ago. Now there's 3. And if you try to find a plumber, that's the truth, because there's no plumbers to be found out there. Why we keep on trying to insist that everybody goes off to college or higher education starts leaning on the fact that I used to have a industrial arts program. I graduated with an industrial arts degree. Went on to school for Central Maine Chemical College for building construction. It's not the field I ended up in, but I have the knowledge. I would love nothing more for them to push, or not push, encourage those that want to work with their hands and learn visually more so than reading, have a place to go. Because right now, there's lots of students in our schools that don't have an industrial arts program, that don't have mechanics, do not have welding, all the things that we once had and people would thrive doing, and now they're forced to either be a college kid or I don't know. That's the question.
Thank you, Bill. Two more questions left. We're going to go for all 4. Starting with Ollie. Housing in Maine has been an ongoing topic of conversation and media coverage. Is there a particular facet of the housing situation you're most passionate about, and how would you hope to address it?
I had the pleasure of serving for the past 2 years on the Joint Select Committee on Housing. It was a newly formed committee, and we were able to appropriate $76 million, part of which is going towards the creation of affordable housing. We're not going to be able to work our way out of this housing crisis. We are in a housing desert. There's a housing crisis, so we've got to build. Yes, building costs have skyrocketed, more than doubled. It doesn't mean that construction can't happen. We are doing it here on this peninsula, with 160 units of affordable housing with low, median, and home ownership. So when you do multi-use housing, I'm a fan of multi-use housing because then you don't segregate one particular population against all the others. And what you build when you mix the use of housing, you have everybody living in townhouses or condo-style housing, is you build neighborhoods. You build neighborhoods instead of segregated housing. So if you wanted to say it's something I'm passionate about housing is making sure everybody gets one. Everybody gets one that's affordable. That children live in a safe place that is free of chemicals like lead, that is safe and warm, that is heated with a sustainable fuel. We have a housing project in Boothbay Harbor, low-income housing, and they heat with electric heat. And on average, I know because I run the Community Resource Council, people on average come in the spring, they have $3,000 electric bills and shut-off notices in their units. That's not okay. You have the poorest people in town who can't pay for that. So whatever we create in housing, it has to be sustainable, it has to be efficient, and it has to be affordable. and we need it yesterday. So that is what I'm most concerned about, housing, and it's one of the things we addressed through our work in the past legislature, and we will continue to address going forward.
Thanks, Holly. Dale?
Yeah, I mean, housing, I have two adult kids that can't afford to live in this town. They can't afford to rent, they can't afford to buy. It's a personal problem, and I think it is for probably everybody in this room. The reality of it is, we have to figure out an inventory. We've lost our inventory for a multitude of different reasons, but it used to be that there was always a rundown house that somebody could buy, fix up, maybe flip and turn over, and those have gone. The inventory doesn't exist anymore. I don't know how to get that inventory back. We definitely need to deregulate and make things a little bit more affordable, make permitting easier for people to be able to get, save that $25,000 of permitting costs that Bill was referring to earlier. The other thing is as well, I'm going to touch on, is giving as many people options to heat their homes any way they can, whether that be propane or heat pumps or furnaces or wood. You're regulating a lot of those things and making them very difficult to do. I've been talking to a lot of plumbers again, and they keep on telling me that heat pumps are not necessarily the way to go, but that's what we're subsidizing and that's what we're helping everybody put in. It's not always one thing fits everybody. It just doesn't work that way. You have to get as much competition out there, and that will drive prices down. But this is going to be a conversation we're all going to have for the next 5-10 years. This is not, as Holly said, we're not going to dig ourselves out of this anytime in the near future. The inventory's gone. What's out there, and the prices are so high, it's not going to be an overnight fix to get something that's $400,000. It used to be $200,000. How we get this way is, yes, it's inflation. But we got to fix it.
Thank you, Dale. Cameron?
Thank you. Excuse me. Housing is a huge one. I am personally tired of seeing people that I have grown up with having to move out of district because they cannot find a place to live here. As I'm knocking doors, I don't think I can count how many places I visit where it is a multi-generational family. And I love a multi-generational house, but only when it's by choice. There's a lot of people that want to leave the nest and they just can't. Or a lot of people that want to age in place and they can't, and they end up with family members. It's a major problem, and it's not going to be solved overnight. We have started tackling this, and we need to do more. As Representative Stover mentioned, we have put really groundbreaking investments in encouraging and incentivizing the creation of housing throughout our state. One of which is through funding the Rural Affordable Rental Housing Program, which is through the Main State Housing. But what it does is it gives cheap money to encourage people to develop smaller, affordable housing in rural areas. And don't get me wrong, affordable sometimes means different things in different people's heads, but it really has a definition. Affordable housing is 30% of your income, not more. And so this affordable housing, I like to think of it as workforce housing, because we're going to be having people that are making more than 80% of the median income, which is not nothing, people. Having housing for that, and gosh, I don't even have time to get into it. We need to preserve the housing we have as well. I'm really invested in making sure that we protect our mobile home parks and manufactured home parks. And some of the last naturally affordable housing we have, and I have more ideas I can share right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
This is obviously a major problem here. As I talked about, particularly having to hire people and get some drive all the way down the peninsula because there's no housing here for them. It's a very difficult situation. The answer is not, again, not to be totally redundant, but it's not one size fits all solutions from Augusta. It's not more government spending and subsidizing and putting their fingers on the scales. What it is, it's getting out of the way, making it so we can build houses less expensively, cutting the costs of building through cutting regulations, through cutting making the permitting process that is so burdensome in this state needs to be eased back. Making it, as Dale referred to, use the type of energy that makes sense for that property. We need to make it, again, get out of the way, let the towns do the right solutions. LD 2003 is a great example. We've each seen these towns having to deal with that bill, which does not fit towns like Southport or Boothbay Harbor. We're spending tens of thousands of dollars just for consultants to figure out how to even comply with that law that was forced upon us by Augusta. The towns can come up with the solutions. I trust the towns to do that. And that's what we need to do, is trust the people in towns. Get out of the way. We have survived in this state as independent people for several hundred years now without having to be told every single step of the way what to do by some consultant from Augusta or Washington. We need to get them out of the way. There's sometimes, we thought that over on Southport where I live, that maybe the best solution is pull that bridge open and keep it that way. And if they have a government employee permit, they're not allowed on that.
Thank you all, very good answers. We have one last question. Then the candidates will have 2 minutes to finish up. And we're going to start with Dale. What is the biggest challenge you see in the Maine healthcare industry? And what would you want to see the legislature do to address it?
So not a topic I'm well versed on, so I'm going to start here a little bit. Please bear with me. Healthcare in Maine, obviously, the prices, like everything else, has gone through the roof. I really think we need to encourage businesses to help with benefits and get back. I mean, I'm going to speak, age myself or date myself. When I was a younger person, almost every place could offer healthcare and health benefits. Now we talk about massive profits and no healthcare benefits for our people anymore. I find that we went the wrong direction there. I'd like to see us figure a way to help get that back so people can actually afford to give their employees healthcare. Obviously, I don't want to burden the person, the business owner too much. But the fact of the matter is, even if we had to incentivize them somehow to do so, it is tough. We're becoming more and more rural. We have less and less hospitals. St. Andrews closed down a few years ago, which makes it tough for people to get to treatment anywhere around here. They have to travel. Cancer treatment people have to travel sometimes a couple of hours to get to their facility to have treatment. We need to broaden we need to create locations for people in rural areas to be able to get to their health care, their health facilities. I think we have a tremendous mental health issue within the state, and I don't think that we have enough mental health facilities around here. I don't think there's enough care or professionals that can get to some of these rural locations. So I think there's things that the state can do to encourage and to help. But to what end, I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not well versed on healthcare. I apologize for that, but there's definitely improvements that can be made within this state.
Thanks, Dale. Cameron?
Thank you. So I serve on the Health Coverage, Insurance, and Financial Services Committee, which encompasses a lot of things, honestly. It was everything from like cryptocurrency banking to PPOs versus HMOs, but it absolutely covers things like health insurance. And health insurance is something that is very important to me. Somebody I loved dearly needed a organ transplant at a young age. So they were put in the position of, and this was before the Affordable Care Act, so you're put in a position of either you need to save poor enough to be able to qualify for some government help where you have to magically get rich really fast. I'm not sure if any of you have tried that. It's very hard, almost impossible. I'm thankful now that there are some more options for people like this in all of our lives. So we have been working, once again, it's a huge problem, and I think it's a huge problem on purpose. It is a beast of a topic. The way our healthcare industry is run, and a lot of change does need to come at the national level, but there are things that we can do on the state level to make things better. I already gave you one example of a healthcare bill I put forward. We have been working on making it easier for providers to move here because Maine is a beautiful, wonderful state. People want to live and work here. And they need to be able to get the certifications and the licenses they need in a timely manner to be able to move here and be providers. We're at such we're needing in many areas of providers. Smaller fixes like the one I mentioned, and then of course I can't not mention, I did put in a bill and it was so close, it just drifted away at the end. And it was LD 1829, and the purpose of that is to tie the Medicare negotiated prices to commercial prices to make sure that everybody can benefit from those prices, not just those on Medicare.
Thank you, Chairman. Bill.
Thank you. My father served for many years on the board of St. Andrews, very proudly, and very frustrated when he did. What did St. Andrews cost? Overregulation. Simple as that. Certificate of need. You have heard that term of a certificate of need. Because of that regulation, we lost St. Andrews Hospital. Simple as that. That's what it was. Okay. We get another problem on these hospitals as we overregulate. We're also deciding to overburden them. We're bringing in 75,000. Run up our housing process with it. Get out that. I think it's important that we understand what is driving these medical problems, these healthcare problems. And yet, if you look at the industries where costs have gone up the most, health is at the top, education's there, is there. What do they all share? Tremendous government regulation and subsidies drive those costs up. Okay, we've tried this kind of thing for a long time. It does not work. Okay, we've got to get off the backs of the hospitals. We've got to let them. St. Andrews should never have been closed, and the only reason it was closed was the government. When the solution to this problem, Ronald Reagan said, is not the government. The government is the problem.
Thank you, Bill. Wally.
Thank you, Kevin. I've served as a trustee at Lincoln Health for the past 10 years, and we have been challenged, like all the small hospitals, critical access hospitals, which allows us a different reimbursement rate, which does help us to sustain. But with the closing of our own hospital here in Boothbay Harbor, and we still have some services on the campus, our challenges remain. It's cost, it's reimbursement, it's workforce, it's reimbursements from insurance companies, it's the lack of parity. Someone mentioned earlier, I think it was Dale, on mental health services. The lack of parity in insurance for mental health services in the state and in every state in this country is abysmal. What is reimbursed and what is paid for is not even cost of care. What is called sadly bad debt or uncompensated care, the nice word is uncompensated care. During 8 years of the LePage administration grew exponentially at Lincoln Health because we had no main care. We enrolled 70,000 people back on health insurance, signed by an executive order by Governor Mills the first day. We enrolled those people, and you saw that portion of the uncompensated care rise, and it's remained high. People who could not afford health care have it. We are run by insurance companies. You can believe that or not, but our healthcare system in this country is managed by and pharmaceuticals. It should not cost for a person to have an inhaler. We've controlled insulin to a certain extent. And until we get our arms around these things and healthcare costs, we will struggle not only as a small rural hospital, but as a state. And the only thing I can say that's positive about that is that we do have improved access to healthcare in the state. People get what they need. Thank you.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm impressed with this. Candidate, starting with Senator Rennie.
All right.
2 minutes.
Also 2 minutes, everything. We, we all care about our homes. We really do. We're all part of these communities. We may not agree on how to fix the problems, but generally we even agree on the problems. We have a lot ahead of us, and I personally, it can be hard not to get wrapped up in the doom and gloom and fear that kind of swirls around. But I am very hopeful. I'm hopeful for the future. Advocacy matters. We can get things done in Augusta. We have gotten things done in Augusta. It's the weirdest job I've ever had, but I really enjoyed it. I've learned so much about so many different things, and I've created so many strong relationships. I've gotten legislation passed and signed into law. I've fixed problems that had plagued me and my families, our families, for years. We're making headway on some of these really big challenges. I'm really proud of the work, the time, effort, the relationship making, and the achievements of what I've managed to accomplish in the past few years. And I really look forward to putting in just as much effort, just as much work, and I'll already have so much of this knowledge in my back pocket. So I can just hit the ground running. And just a side note, because I only have a couple seconds left. Lobster industry, firefighters. Maine has advocated hard for the lobster industry. The federal delegation, the Maine DMR, the Maine Lobstering Association, we pushed back on the whale regulations. We received a moratorium and the funding to get the data we need. We are not behind. Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to thank the Boothbay Register for giving us this opportunity to talk here tonight and to meet all of you folks and for you to see us. I'd also like to thank Senator Rennie and for their service over the past few years. This is not an easy thing to do. Running for office is not an easy thing to do. And it's not like making a lot of money. That's how these jobs. It's believe me, even though it has raised coming forward. But I do appreciate that. And the things I also want to comment on is we've had here a little over an hour of us conversing. It's we've had a civilized conversation. We can agree to disagree. And it's something that I so much appreciate about our culture here. As I have lived in some different states, always coming home, I keep bouncing back to be here. But it is different. Maine is a very, very special place. A very, very special people. I've been honored to have my family raised here. I have 4 daughters, 2 granddaughters. And we all love this state. I think it's fair to say that everybody at this table is committed to the future of this state. We don't always agree on what's best for the future, but we all agree that this is the greatest state in the union, and we want to make it better. Thank you for attending, and thank you for doing Augusta.
Thank you, Kevin. I also want to thank everyone for this. It's not easy to sit at this table and it's not easy to have your life consumed. For the next 33 days and 33 nights, to eat, sleep, campaigning. And that's okay, because I actually love being on the community with all of you. I've enjoyed my last 6 years. I've been not only as your legislator, but as a leader in your legislature. I served as the chair of the Government Oversight Committee, the 130th. On the 131st, I served as the House Chair for the Joint Standing Committee on State and Local Government, and I also served on the Joint Select Committee on Housing. I also chaired, after the storms, I reconvened the Coastal Caucus, which is a bipartisan caucus where we all get together and talk about things which included the $60 million. We passed $60 million that transferred out of the rainy day fund. Some of that came to this community. It is not all spent yet. It's my hope that more of it comes to our community to repair the damage from the storms, to prepare ourselves for future storms. It has been an honor and a pleasure not only to be part of this community individually, to be part of Westport Island, South Bristol, and the town where I live, Boothbay Harbor, and Southport, representing you, not only here at home, but representing you in Augusta when things come up that we talk about tonight. And I can say, no, that doesn't work in my town. No, that doesn't work for my people. It doesn't work for Lobster. And advocating for the things that we need most. And I know what we need most because I am one of you. I have lived here. I was born at St. Andrews, and I've lived here my whole life. And this place courses through my veins. And I love everything about our communities, our strengths. Our strengths always outweigh our weaknesses. And it's been, again, she's giving me the red flag, but thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have the same thing that everybody else has said. I commend both Cameron and Holly. I have a whole new respect for running a campaign of any kind. This is all inclusive, all engulfing your life, everything about this, everywhere you go, the topic. Like I said, brand new respect. I do commend anybody who takes this challenge on, certainly the ones that have succeeded. And I think we all are there for the same reasons. I think we all have the same problems and the same wants. I think we have different agendas and different ideas on how to get there. And that's okay. One of the things I've been door knocking, knocked on 1,000 doors, start off always that I really hate the extremes. On either side, I think they're kind of counterproductive on both sides. I really like to keep it out of talk and figure out if there is common ground, we can find it. I believe we can. Maine is the way life should be, and I really want to keep it that way. I think we're slipping, and I'm not saying that it's my feel, it's my gut. It just says, and I have a lot of blue collar guys that talk to me every day that they're just thankful that somebody was willing to step up and take the run. And I am thankful that I took this run. It's been an education for me. It's been endearing. It's been daunting to say the least. But it's also been highly educational. I've learned so many things from the people of the state, or my district, I should say. Their wants, their needs, their desires, their problems, and I think I have the ability with some good common sense and willing to make hard choices. That I can do that in Augusta if given the chance. I hope you give me the chance.
All right, 2 hours bottom of the ninth. Clean up here. I want to thank the Legion again. I want to thank Meyer for asking me to do this. It wasn't me to do this. I moved this for live streaming this over the CN Facebook page. This is the third of 5 forums. It's coming Monday. Either LCN Publisher Roberts or Meyer will moderate a forum in the Waldboro Town office featuring the candidates House District 45 and 62. The final forum will take place in the Boothbay Community School cafeteria on Thursday, October 10th, and feature the candidates from Senate District 13. It's a big district, so put them in the here twice, and House District 46. Thank you all. Great turnout. Have a safe trip home.
I know, all of a sudden.